If there's one thing hunters like to argue about, it's hunting rifles. And because of that, there's a lot of myths out there about hunting rifles. You'll hear them at camp, at the gun store, and in the comment section of YouTube videos. So today we're breaking down the biggest hunting rifle myths that people still believe. Let's get into it. Now the first one is super popular, so much so I did a video on it last week, and that is you need a Magnum to kill big game animals. Now this is specifically in regards to elk, and I'll leave a link down to that video below, but people seem to think you need a big heavy hitting Magnum to kill an elk, which just isn't true. We all know that things like the 270, 30-06, 308 can effectively kill an elk, and let's be real, they've probably killed more elk than all the Magnums combined. Now I'm not saying there's anything wrong with a Magnum. In fact, if you were to give me one cartridge to hunt elk with, I'd probably pick a 300 Win Mag myself. But within reasonable hunting distances, a 270, 30-06, 308, 708, 6.5 PRC, there's a lot of great options out there that are elk capable. What matters more than anything is your bullet construction and your shot placement, which I think is why a lot more guys probably should be shooting these lighter cartridges, because they generally are a little easier to shoot, and because of that, more accurate. Every year there's plenty of elk getting killed with the 270 and the 30-06. Ammo's going to be cheaper and a lot more readily available. So myth number one, busted. And speaking of the 30-06, that leads us into myth number two, and that is the 30-06 is outdated. Now, if there's one thing I've learned about hunting rifles and YouTube in general, is that if you want to piss people off, talk about the 30-06. And what's funny is I love the 30-06, but I've made comments and I've talked about some of its downfalls, which it does have some. But to say that it is outdated or obsolete is just false. Which is why the cartridge and this rifle in particular keep making an appearance in almost every single one of my YouTube videos, is because it is far from irrelevant these days. While sure, I'm not personally hunting with one this year, I still have one, and you can find a wide range of ammo everywhere you go, various bullet weights. It is a very versatile cartridge. That ammo is also found pretty much everywhere, and generally it's pretty cheap. I think the thing about the 30-06 is it just doesn't get the hype that these newer cartridges get every year. But outdated doesn't mean obsolete, and if anything, I'd say it's probably the most proven cartridge in North America. And I'll probably have some guys in my comments saying I should probably just use it instead of this new 6.5 PRC I picked up this year for deer, but I always like experimenting with new things. So today we're going to shoot this a little bit. Let's go see what we got. Real quick guys, I really appreciate the support on this channel. It's been crazy the last couple months, the growth that we've seen. So if you watch, subscribe, comment on any of my videos, just know I really do appreciate it. Just wanted to make sure this gun was on real quick. We're going to be shooting some new ammo today, but really been loving this Tikka. That's our group right there. Let's try out this new ammo and get into myth number three. Now this next one has to do with the scope that's on the rifle, not necessarily the rifle itself, and that is a bigger scope means better shooting. Now the actual size of your scope I don't think really matters, but it just seems that some guys think that the bigger the scope, the more accurate they're going to be, which just isn't the case. I mean, sure, a bigger scope is going to give you a lot more magnification, but it's also going to come with a lot more size and a lot more weight. For example, what I'm using here is a 3-18 power scope, which for me is really in that sweet spot that I really like. Right here we have a 5-20 power, and you can see the difference in size, and there's a huge difference in weight. For me, I like anything from a 15 power to 20, maybe 24 power, I feel like is that sweet spot for hunting out here in the West. Anything more than that, or anything that's super big and heavy, I just don't like carrying around on my rifle. But some guys are gonna want more magnification. They're gonna want the bigger sizes to gather light better, and there's nothing wrong with that. But just because you're using a bigger scope, doesn't mean you're going to be more accurate. In my opinion, the most important thing when it comes to scopes is the quality, not the size. So if that means spending a little more money and getting something smaller but a higher quality versus just automatically trying to get the biggest thing you can, I think you're going to be better off in the long run. And again, going back to these old hunting rifles, how many animals do you think were killed with a 3-9 scope? Probably quite a bit. So for the Tikka, we're going to shoot some Barnes next to see how it likes it. And I guess this would be a good time to get into myth number 4, because myth number 4 is that budget rifles can't compete with higher end stuff. And we all know that that's not true. Now, I don't know if people consider the Tikka a budget rifle, but I do think it is on the lower end as far as costs go. And there's plenty more that cost way less that are very capable of producing great results. I think I paid about $800 for this rifle. I did opt for the stainless. It's a little bit more expensive, but I think it was worth it. And you saw that first group we shot, that is very consistent with this rifle. Okay. Well, I think I pulled one of those shots. It looks pretty far off, but the other 3 look pretty good. Now, I intend to shoot and review a lot more budget rifles on this channel in the future. So if you're not already, subscribe so you don't miss those. But I've reviewed the Ruger American, for example, not counting this Tikka. We've got other rifles like the cheap Remingtons, and you can get those for an incredible price. And with a little bit of work, it's kind of surprising how good some of these cheap rifles can actually shoot. So I felt like I really pulled one pretty bad, and it looks like I did, because our other 3 are looking pretty good. So there's the Flyer and then the 3. Now, our more expensive rifles, nicer, absolutely. You're gonna get smoother actions, better stocks, better everything, honestly. But just because you're hunting with a budget rifle doesn't mean you're not gonna be or can't be just as effective as somebody who's hunting with a $3,000-$4,000 rifle. No matter what your rifle costs, I think the most important thing is just plenty of practice with it. And that kind of leads me into the last myth, which is a myth around accuracy. It just seems like everybody is chasing sub-MOA accuracy, one-hole groups, and bragging about it. And I feel like that's all it is, because do you really need crazy sub-MOA accuracy in a hunting rifle? I don't think so. Now, don't get me wrong, I love great accuracy sub-MOA groups as much as the next guy. I've been more than happy with how this Tikka has been performing with just about every ammo I've shot out of it. But at reasonable hunting distances, do you really need crazy accuracy, or is right around 1 MOA, 1.5 MOA sufficient? I mean, if you think about it, you go to shoot a deer at 200 yards, do you really need crazy pinpoint accuracy? Or is that 1.5 MOA gonna be good enough? Now again, I love tiny groups. That's why I'm experimenting with different ammo to see which one my gun shoots best so I can get the best possible accuracy. That's why I've done a little bit of upgrades to this gun, and I will continue to tinker with it, chasing the best possible accuracy. But when people go out hunting, do they need competition level accuracy if all they're gonna be doing is shooting at 100, 200, maybe out to 300 yards? Maybe not. And so these are just some of the hunting rifle myths that I continue to see online or here in person, and I just don't think they hold a lot of weight. But like everything else on this channel, these are all just my opinions. And for those of you that have your own, I'd love to hear them down in the comments. Which of these do you think are true? Which ones are false? What are some other myths that you hear at the gun store, out at the range, or in hunting camp? Let me know down below. I appreciate you guys watching this video. We'll catch you in the next one.